All right, let's talk about the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Now, you might think you know the story, but it has this incredible twist. It's a story about a king, a cleric in exile, and a piece of old tech that, well, it ended up changing everything. And really, the whole thing hinges on this one kind of wild question. How on earth did a simple plastic cassette tape bring down one of the oldest, most powerful monarchies on the entire planet? Yeah, you heard that right. So to even begin to wrap our heads around how that's possible, we've got to look at what that kingdom was actually like. You see, the thing about Iran in the 1970s is that it wasn't really one country. It felt more like two completely different worlds, living side by side, and that gap between them was just getting bigger and bigger. So on one side, you had the Shah's Iran. He called it an island of stability. This was a world of unbelievable wealth. We're talking massive, multi-million-dollar parties in the desert with tents made of blue silk and food flown in from the best chefs in France. It was flashy, it was Western, it was charging into the modern age. But then you had the other Iran, the Iran of the local markets, the bazaars, the villages, where a lot of people were really hurting economically and felt like their entire way of life, their Islamic identity, was just being steamrolled. And what happened if you dared to speak up about this divide? Well, then you'd get a visit from the SAVAK. This was the Shah's secret police, and they were notorious. They created this intense climate of fear, where even whispering a complaint against the government was incredibly dangerous. So open dissent? Forget about it. It was basically impossible. But even in that climate of fear, one voice just wouldn't be silenced. From his exile in France, a cleric named Ayatollah Khomeini was speaking directly to all those frustrations people felt. And his weapon of choice? Well, it was something you'd probably find in a junk drawer today. I mean, think about that for a second. The Shah had the army, the media, the secret police, total control. And yet, the voice of this 76-year-old man, recorded on a cheap cassette, managed to cut through all of it and reach millions of people directly. It was a complete game changer. It was basically the world's first analog social media campaign. So simple, but absolutely genius. His speeches would be recorded in France, the master tapes would get smuggled into Iran, and then, using basic tape-to-tape recorders, people would make hundreds, then thousands of copies. Those tapes spread like wildfire through the markets and mosques. People would gather in their homes in secret just to listen. It was a viral movement before going viral was even a thing. Okay, so the message is out there, right? People are listening. But how do you get from a few people huddled around a tape player to a full-blown revolution that overthrows a king? Well, it happened because of this powerful, repeating cycle that became the actual heartbeat of the entire movement. It all kicked off in early '78. The government published an article that was really insulting to Khomeini, and people took to the streets. The police opened fire, and demonstrators were killed. Now, here's the crucial part. In Shia Islam, there's a tradition of mourning the dead 40 days after their passing. So that first mourning ceremony turned into another, even bigger protest. The police fired again, more people were killed. And then, 40 days after that, an even bigger protest. It was a tragic but powerful rhythm. Every 40 days, the pulse of the revolution got stronger and stronger. And this deadly cycle, this 40-day heartbeat, it just kept building and building until September 1978, a day that would go down in history as Black Friday. The military opened fire on a huge crowd of unarmed protesters in Tehran. The number of people killed was devastating. And for Iran, that was it. That was the point of no return. The sheer brutality turned the country against the Shah for good, and even soldiers started to refuse their orders. After Black Friday, everything just fell apart. The Shah's power, which had seemed so absolute for decades, just crumbled. And it happened incredibly fast. The end of a 2,500-year-old monarchy was literally just weeks away. So on January 16, 1979, the Shah of Iran, the King of Kings, walks onto his private jet. He tells everyone he's just going on a little vacation, but he does this one thing. He takes a small box of Iranian soil with him. And, well, he never came back. And get this, just 2 weeks after the king slips away almost unnoticed, a chartered 747 lands in Tehran, and walking down those steps is Ayatollah Khomeini, returning after 15 years in exile. You just can't imagine a more dramatic contrast. You really have to try and picture this. We're talking an estimated 6 million people pouring into the streets of Tehran to welcome him home. It was one of the largest demonstrations in human history. The monarchy was gone. It had basically just evaporated. The power shift wasn't just happening, it was complete. So Khomeini's back, the revolution is won. But this is where the story gets even more complicated. Because overthrowing the king was one thing. Figuring out what came next was something else entirely. Yeah, this is something that's so important to get. The people who fought this revolution, they weren't all on the same page. You had liberals, you had students, leftists, religious groups, a whole mix. They all had a common enemy for sure, but a common vision for the future, not so much. And as soon as the Shah was gone, that alliance just fell to pieces. Khomeini and his followers, they didn't waste any time. They used their massive popular support to move fast, outmaneuvering everyone else. They set up revolutionary courts, they wrote a new constitution, and they systematically remade Iran's laws, its culture, its society into the Islamic Republic. And that really brings us to the whole point of the story. Why does a revolution from 1979, fought with cassette tapes, still matter so much? Because the world we live in today was shaped by those events. The geopolitical landscape, the tensions, the alliances, so many of those ripples started right there. It just goes to show you, history isn't something dusty in a museum. It's alive, and its echoes are all around us.